Hey guys, welcome back to Sinister Sagas. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that yet. Sit back and listen to the scary, creepy stories. Number 1. The Hauntings at the Lizzie Borden House. On August 4th, 1892, Andrew and his wife, Abby Borden, were found brutally murdered in their Fall River, Massachusetts, home. Though murder wasn't uncommon in the late 1800s, the fact that they were bludgeoned to death with an axe and the main suspect was their 32-year-old daughter, Lizzie Borden, certainly was. The crime and trial that followed made headlines around the world. Lizzie was ultimately acquitted of murder, but she remains forever linked to the heinous killings, as does the home where the crime was committed. Now, a bed and breakfast and museum, the Borden home attracts history buffs and thrill seekers who come to see for themselves if rumors that the house is haunted are, indeed, true. When I started working here, it was more of the history. I really didn't care about the paranormal. Suzanne Saint. John, a realtor and tour guide at the Lizzie Borden house, tells Today.com. However, that all changed after Saint. John says she experienced a few unusual happenings of her own. Guests tell us they hear laughing and playing in the middle of the night. Things get moved around, she says. And Saint. John has experienced a few unusual things herself, saying that once she discovered toys scattered across a room that no one had been in. Saint. John also talks of a picture that fell over and slid 2 feet across the floor without any plausible explanation, as well as a closet door that once opened on its own volition. On the eve of the anniversary of Andrew and Abby's murder, Saint. John says that she and 2 other tour guides at the house felt a sudden sharp, piercing pain in their left eyes, the same exact location of Andrew Borden's fatal injuries. Perhaps the most unsettling, however, is the story Saint. John tells of a tour guide at the Lizzie Borden house who asked her group to silence their cell phones before beginning the tour. Moments later, a guest's cell phone rang. She looked up and said, "It's my mom." Number 2. The Haunted Ventriloquist Doll. When Marty was a child back in the 90s, she tells Monsters Among Us that she was a fan of ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his dummy sidekick, Charlie McCarthy. She says that when her father came across a ventriloquist doll as he wandered through a small magic shop located outside of Santa Rosa, California, he decided to buy it for her birthday. While ringing up the sale, Marty says the cashier gave her father weird vibes and said to him, "You know, when you put your hand inside the doll, he's going to come alive." Laughing off the comment, he brought the dummy home to his daughter. According to Marty, she was over the moon when her dad gave her the doll, saying, "I was so happy when I got that doll, I was obsessed." But before long, strange things began happening. Though impossible because the doll's head was made of hard plastic, she says its expression would change, including his smile. Worried something would happen to her precious dummy, Marty's family shut it away in a cupboard most nights. One night, she and her family were awakened by the pitter-patter of steps in their living room. Thinking it was the dog or another family member, they went to look. No one was there, except for the doll who was sitting on the couch. We remember specifically, we always put it away because I loved that doll so much that I took care of it, Marty says on the podcast. Other strange occurrences began happening. While Marty and her dad were away, her uncle was alone in the house. The uncle says he heard Marty's father calling his name from the living room, even though he wasn't home. When he went to look, he found the doll once again, sitting on the couch, and no one else. All of our family was pretty much scared of the doll, Marty says. People would start hearing their names being called, and we would hear walking at night. So we just decided we needed to get rid of it. Being Mexican and religious, Marty says her parents wanted to burn the doll in case it was demonic. They put it on the grill, and according to Marty, it wouldn't burn. This doll would not go up in flames at all whatsoever. They tried cutting it up with a knife but were unsuccessful. Finally, they threw it in the trash can. After the garbage was collected, Marty's dad went to retrieve the bin. In it, the doll. To rid themselves of the dummy, they dug a hole in the backyard, then filled it with cement. Marty and family have long since moved away, but she says they still think about the doll and the possibility that eventually it finds one of us. Number 3, the grandmas in the cemetery. Jeff, a resident of Dayton, Ohio, was driving with his 3-year-old son Miles in the back seat when they passed by a cemetery. It was a modest cemetery with only flowers and small plaques. It basically looks like a giant garden, Jeff explains on Monsters Among Us. According to Jeff, as they drove by, his toddler, who'd been happily singing, abruptly stopped, pointed to the cemetery and exclaimed, "Look at all those people." Jeff turned to look but didn't see a soul. Confused, he asked Miles what he was talking about. "All those people over there," his son replied. "There sure are a lot of grandmas." As Jeff tells it, chills ran down his spine as he asked his son what the people were doing. "They're all standing there, looking down at the grass," Miles said. Completely unsettled by the conversation, Jeff sped up and drove home. Later that same day, he says his young son was watching TV when he turned to Jeff and said, they weren't alive." Thinking Miles was referring to the cartoon, Jeff asked what he meant. "Those people we saw. They were all paused," his son replied. "I don't know if my kid has the sixth sense," Jeff says, "or if he just has a wild imagination." Number 4, the ghost of the Stanley Hotel. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, has been around for more than 100 years and was built as a posh getaway for the wealthy seeking solitude in the mountains. As the years passed, however, occupancy declined, and by the 1970s, the Grand Hotel had fallen into disrepair. It was around that time that famed author Stephen King spent the night there and was inspired to write the book The Shining. The book and blockbuster film helped return the Stanley to its former glory. Now, guests come in droves to see the hotel that inspired one of the scariest horror movies of all time. Given its history, it should come as no surprise that many visitors report strange happenings. Aware of the ghostly rumors, Texas resident Henry Yao booked a last-minute getaway in April of 2016 to check it out. After arriving, Yao had dinner, then wandered around the Stanley to take photos. Stopping at the staircase, he waited for people to clear the area, then took a picture, thinking nothing of it. Later that night, however, Yao fell seriously ill. "I felt really sick. I had the shivers. I was like, something's really wrong," he tells Today.com. His companion suggested he go to the emergency room, but Yao refused. On the trip home, Yao began swiping through the photos he'd taken when he discovered what he said was a really, really strange image of someone standing on the stairs. Except no one had been there. The next day, he posted the photo on Instagram, half joking that he'd captured a ghost and the world took notice. Almost overnight, Yao found himself in the limelight with his ghost picture warranting attention from global media outlets and paranormal experts who wanted to examine the photo. Some experts say that there's 2 ghosts, and other people said that the reason I got sick is because the ghost was trying to materialize, taking energy out of me, he said. "There's so many theories about this." "And what does Yao think?" "I have no idea," he says with a laugh. Number 5, the ghost truck stop. On his way to get married, a military man and his best man set off on an 800-mile road trip from Camp Lejeune in North Carolina to Lafayette, Indiana. It's 1 a.m. on a cold January night in 2014, and the man tells Monsters Among Us that the weather is bad and temperatures are in the negative double digits. As the pair close in on Indianapolis, they discover they have no money to pay for gas to refuel the car and are about to run out. Growing up in the trucking industry with my dad, I decided to stop at a truck stop, the man explains. But because the main interstates were shut down due to the weather, they had get off the highway and search for a truck stop along the back roads instead. We found a smaller truck stop. It had 1 truck and it was just kind of strange. It was just a blacked out truck with a blacked out trailer. There was no real markings on it, nothing distinguishable, he says. They went in, hoping a clerk or waitress would spot them a few dollars for gas enough to make it to Indianapolis, at which time they'd go to the bank, take out cash, and pay back the loan. Inside, they found a tidy diner, occupied by a waitress, cook, and a lone truck driver. I went inside, talked to this driver, and he bought us a cup of coffee. We sat there and talked for about 30 minutes about what was going on, and why we were headed, where we were, and what we were doing. And he gave us $20 for gas. I went outside, pumped our gas, came back in, and I told him, "Hey, I really appreciate it. I'll be back." Making good on his word, the man got cash from the bank upon arriving in Indianapolis and returned to the diner. When we arrive at about 10 o'clock in the morning, it's boarded up, he says. It looks like it's been abandoned for years, and the truck's gone. But we had just been in there. They pull in anyway, and find a police officer parked in the lot. They explain what happened just hours before, to which the cop chuckles and replies, "Oh, you met the ghost of 3." So 2 military members converse, had a cup of coffee with, interacted with, 3 people at a diner that had a fuel pump. I got $20 worth of gas, says the man. When I came back, it'd been boarded up for, if I remember correctly, the cop said it had been boarded up for the last 25 years. Thank you for watching. Stay haunted and leave a comment which story was best.